up random rockers. Finally. Whew. Time we finally do the 2017 year end list for the albums. In a week. So yeah. Finally time to get to those, and it's been a lot of pondering, a lot of definite things to pretty well figure out on what would make my list. I've decided to, of all the albums I've showed and done reviewed, I've narrowed it down to best I could do 15. And a lot of honorable mentions. Some I've wound up listening to recently, just a little bit in this year, but not enough to say I could count it for this year. I'm not going to count it for next year, so I'll just kind of throw it out there. I'm making this hat useful, and I'm going to pretty well tell you, Chris Stapleton, From a Room, Volumes 1 and 2, more specifically 2, dang good albums. 2 a little bit more closer to my tastes. Same could be said for another country artist more on the outlaw side of things, or the right side of country, would be Darkest Darks, Lightest Lights by The White Buffalo. But then there's so many other albums I never got a chance to get to, and blah blah blah. In fact, here's some albums that some I even had to cut off the list. And so far, here are the albums as we go through by them quickly. Royal Blood. How Did We Get So Dark? Black Map in Droves. Incubus 8. Was disappointed with that one. Wasn't as disappointed with that one as most people tend to be about the record, even though, honestly, the album prior to that was pretty bad. Like, absolutely boring. This album at least had something going on for it. Even if you could get... You sure they were trying to phone it in places, but... the fact they even gave enough of a shit to make something better than what they did last time around should speak enough volumes. All we can do is hope that maybe they actually bother to try. If not, then I'll just... You had a good run in the early 2000s, guys. Just leave it at that and just move on, I guess. I don't know. Or try to prove me and anyone else who's starting to doubt you now wrong. Demon Hunter. Outlive. Definitely a damn good Christian metal album. Also, speaking of Christian metal, or rock for that matter, Gone by Red I would also give an honorable mention to, even though I still prefer the Release to Panic over that. Come fight. Want to fight about it? Anyway. And this one I might get some more heat for. Dead Cross. The self-titled debut involving another project involving Slayer, the drummer from Slayer, that's Dave Lombardo. There we go. And Mike Patton, more known of Faith No More and Mr. Bungle fame. And, of course, both of them having worked together on Phantomus. Villains. Queens of Stone Age. Still a good record. Still a pretty solid record, but let's face it. My Queens, to me, has been the Songs for the Deaf, rated R. Messengers. After the Party. Rise Against Wolves. And this one, I actually was wanting to think of putting on the list. And then I had to take it off so I could, make room for my number 3 on here, which some people might hypocritically call me out on just a tad bit. And that is Hydrograd. Stone Sour. New album, that is. And now, finally, we get to the actual list. Some of these albums I don't have on hand, but you're just going to have to take my word for it, which I hope you do. Number 15, Wage Wars Wait, produced by Jeremy McKinnon from Day to Remember. In fact, on his ADTR Records label, or at least that moniker or whatever that thing is called, if you call that a label or an imprint, whatever. But it is Jeremy McKinnon's project, and in fact, you could tell it in production. It definitely sounds so much like A Day to Remember on the metalcore side of things, more than and post-hardcore side of things, more than anything. Both the albums, even the one that came prior to this one, which name escapes me, but that was a good record too. This one definitely seems to focus more on the clean scening, and I definitely like me some of that. Number 14, Soen Lykia. Definitely one of those few albums that I definitely did enjoy this, and I definitely played it a lot during, at least via what I'm using right now to record this on the phone, and having listened to it that way. Though I definitely recommend buying it. Hell, I'm putting it in my top 15, yet alone considering some of these on my top 10. So yeah, definitely go out and buy it for sure. Especially if you need your tool, if you were definitely in need of your tool fix in 2017. This was definitely something to hold you over. Speaking of that kind of stuff, number 13, 10 Years. How Do We Live as Ghosts? I might get some hate for the fact that, or at least I may or may not get hate actually on this one, because some people will probably prefer Soen over 10 Years. Soen's far more newer of a band than 10 Years, and the funniest thing is, I do like this album more, but I almost feel like I could flip-flop between the Soen and 10 Years album, but I have more of a ground to 10 Years, so that's, I guess there's a Tobias, I guess you could say, but I enjoyed this album, and it reminded me a lot of what they did with their earlier stuff, but maybe not, but it didn't hit nearly as hard as their last album, which I wish I was started reviewing that, did a better job of reviewing that, I guess, but maybe I might talk about that again later on, and maybe some of 10 Years later albums as well, which I do have collected with me someday. You never know. Coming in at number 12, Japandroids, Near the Wild Heart of Life. That's the band, and I really did enjoy this album. It is definitely, at first I kind of started to kind of about it. I think I even did so in my review, but looking further back on this album, especially looking on Crash's recommendation, and I thought maybe I should give him another shot. And I was right too, and I realized that it's definitely a 15 top 20 worthy type of album. And that is definitely the case. Now, number 11. Hell, I actually would also like to give, speaking of which, I'll give another honorable mention I didn't get to say has been Converge. Also, Converge is The Dusk in Us. The reason why I say that is because most people would rather put this album over the other album, which I'm willing to bet that Converge has been an influence towards this band and what they're currently doing to some degree or another. And that is Code Orange with their album Forever. Of course, the opening title track having been Grammy nominated in Best Metal Performance, even though most of they're technically considered hardcore. Even though when you're labeled as metalcore, you may as well still be associated with metal just as much as you are hardcore. Just metalheads, get the fuck over it, okay? Please, just get the fuck over it. Ugh. All right. And I mean, this album is just freaky as all hell. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you decided to put this on for Halloween just to creep out the kids. It's coming up to your door doing trick-or-treat or something. Holy moly. This album was creepy. And it's ironic how it came out in January, so it had a lot of time to really marinate on and grow on me in the same way that Split does. Though I would have actually put this up a little higher. In fact, so I'm more surprised it's not number 10, but there were some albums that I just gravitated to a lot more and like a lot more. Hell, surprisingly, some that are of the more instrumental variety, which is what our next two parts of the list will be consisted of. Number 10, Nova Collective. This is basically a called Nova Collective, The Further Side. This group, Nova Collective, is basically a sort of a metallic jazz fusion group that was basically formed by Tommy Rogers. At least I believe it's Tommy Rogers. From that of Between the Buried and Me, as well as some other project that is sort of similar to this Nova Collective, but also consisting of members of Haken, another progressive project that released a pretty good album, considerably well praised album last year that I never really gave it really a fair shake, or a chance at that, for that matter, even though I definitely need to try to check them out, and I think some of the more Asian influences do sort of come in and shine on this album for sure. Coming in at number 9, which I found these instrumental pieces to be so much better, and that is from the band Intervals. Hell, speaking of something that reminds me of Intervals, The Observer by Artificial Language. They sound a lot like something they did that Intervals had pretty well did with their last record, except, with vocals going on, but in a way that comes off very Between the Buried and Me and Leprous. That being... damn coughs. Alright. Leaving with Intervals. Ugh. Damn good. Opening track, Touch and Go. Dude, I just feel like this is like, if you want to, if they ever made a music video where it was a party in an elevator, it would truly describe what their music is. Other than, playing, held on top of that, a elevator that allows you to pretty well play Smash Brothers. Gives you a chance to play Smash Brothers while you're waiting, depending on how high you decide to go up and how many stories of a big building you're living in or something that has an elevator. Ugh. Always awesome. And Rubicon Artist is definitely one of the heavier tracks on there. And the track that ends this is a little on the softer side, but the track following that I think should have been a better... If I'm nitpicky, should have been the real closer, but take what you can get. Take what you can get, I guess. It was really good. Number 8, one I was originally praising to be at number 1, and then a certain other album took over that, and now that album I was a little debating on whether or not if I should do that one, but we'll get to that in a minute. But this album specifically that I'm talking about is from At the Drive In Interalia. Yeah, I mean, No More Like the Present definitely brings it out, but for the most part, I mean, I like this album, I still do, but the thing is, it doesn't hold a candle to the album that preceded it nearly 17 years ago, now 18 years ago, as of 2018. But for a reunion, this, like thrice last year, in 2000, or at least more specifically 2016, for 2017, this, to me, is the comeback of the year, even though some people will say that about another album I might have later on the list from another band that I actually never got into to begin with. And, which definitely is on that pile, but we're not going to get to that yet because it's a little bit... Actually, never mind. I correct myself there. But yeah, there's a lot of people are saying Holt's Call is good, but I'm like, whatever. I really started to... It was governed by Contagions, and pretty well the closing track, Hostage Stamp, definitely a lot of it's all pretty dang good. Ghost Tape number 9 is definitely a very softer track and definitely slightly reminiscent in the same way as the second to last track on Relationship of Command. But yeah, if you really liked what that band offers, this is damn good. Even though I do feel like, to a degree, the one thing that is... It still works as an album, but I feel like if... Brian Ward, if I'm getting your name right, who did not show up to be involved in this record, and instead one of the other guys that was from his band Sparta wound up tagging along for this, Keeley, and he's good, but I feel like if they just had What's-His-Face back, it would have been so much better. It would have been possibly an even better record. Who knows? But time will tell if maybe that might finally blossom a lot more in a follow-up album, if he ever bothers to decide to return to At the Drive-In. Coming in at number 7, Pain of Salvation. In the passing Light of Day. Whew, this was definitely something. Hell, just getting the bonus stuff is actually kind of interesting too. Especially the blooper stuff. Especially when it came to Ton of God. That one always get me, even though that's kind of a bit on the immature side of things. When you hear it, you'll know it. But from the moment On a Tuesday hits, it pretty well giving you everything you need to expect from this album. And then, I mean, Ton of God is definitely... There's some tracks that don't work as well to some, and to me, some people don't care for Silent Gold, but I love Silent Gold, especially with when I used to be with Rita, and they had a piano up there, and it was one of those tracks I wanted to learn on piano, and still do. I mean, if not for another artist that I'm also about to bring up as well. In fact, this is considered a comeback for this band, and to a degree. Or at least in a way where they leave off from what they were doing in recent albums, but starting to bring back some of the roots that they had, from what I've heard, which kind of gets me curious about what their sound had been in the past. And I may start to check out. And this, from the opening to the closing title track, and there are moments where it may be off-putting, but some tracks really are purposefully meant to be like Angels of Broken Things. I've said more in my actual review for this album. But yes, I still enjoy most of this from On a Tuesday to a degree. Ton of God to a degree. Reasons is good. Silent Gold is darn good. The Taming of a Beast and The Passing Light of Day are the ones that really, really hit the most on this album for sure. Sure, and it's definitely an album worth checking out. If this is the first album you ever get a chance to check out for Pain of Salvation, go ahead and go for it. There are other albums you could, ask other fans out there. They might lead you to something better from the band. But for now, this isn't a bad start. It wasn't for me, or else I wouldn't be putting it up in my higher list. And number 6, To the Bone, from Steven Wilson. A lot of people are starting to really enjoy this album, man. I do as well. I will admit, I preferred their last album, as I had stated, which was my decision of introducing myself with a best of list of 2016 to YouTube was probably not the best decision, but I decided to go along with it because I realized I could upload it somehow via my one channel, and I just decided to change my name to the whatever at that time. So from the title track to Nowhere Now, I mean, Pariah still hits, especially with with the one chick on this featured on this track's vocals, which, I mean, that and Blank Tapes, but Blank Tapes is kind of whatever, but with Pariah, her voice just soars. Same as Asylum as before. Refugee's pretty good. Between that and the opening title track of To the Bone, both really good harmonica features there. Though I will say that in Permeating, surprisingly, of the more poppier tracks, I do enjoy. If you're going to give me a good progressive pop rock type album that really is really engaging and worthwhile, and definitely shows off his 80s influences as well, definitely worth checking out. And hopefully, if this is your first taste, definitely check out their past discographies, and even Porcupine Tree stuff, and even the albums he's produced for Opeth, and his one project with, I think it's Base Communion or something, with Michael Eckerfeld from Opeth. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, check those out as well. As far as I'm concerned, if you did like Opeth or like what he's done with Porcupine Tree, for the most part, I would say, and whatever he's done in his more poppier, or Blackfield for that matter, then you will not be disappointed with whatever Steven will put out. Especially if you liked this album, then you can't do it. You will not go wrong, except for maybe Steven's first album. I just find that off-putting. It's whatever. Coming in at number 5. Maybe I'm going to have to switch these around now. Mastodon's Emperor of Sand. and Cold Dark Place EP. As a whole, all the works that they've brought us in 2017 are have been magnifique. With this album specifically, a great slight return to form, while also somewhat pressing forward from what they've put out via The Hunter and the likes of Once More Around the Sun. Once More Around the Sun having finally perfected that particular sound that they kind of did with The Hunter but failed with. And this album kind of ventures from that but brings back some of what we liked about the band prior to The Hunter, more specifically Crack the Sky, which this album was definitely making my ironically making my top 5 of the year, and definitely top 5, this one specifically, of my Mastodon records, and definitely don't sleep on that Cold Dark EP as well. Hard on that Cold Dark Place EP, man. Just don't sleep on that either. Hell, I need to pick that up myself. It's gonna be fun. Coming in at number 4. A band from Spain. This is a band that reminds me of Alagon's recent album that I talked about last year, I believe. And I feel like this album does what they were trying to do, but better, perfectly balancing melodic and progressive styles of death metal, though bringing in a lot more other things, especially more on the progressive side of things. And that is Persefone Aathma. Definitely a good album in terms of self-discovery, and definitely worth a good form of headbanging while also kind of being thought-provoking. Which it's not like Mastodon doesn't do that, but definitely worthwhile here with that album as well. And now that leads us to the top 3 albums. Number 3, an album that I mostly bumped. This is a great album all around, just from the opening title track, even tracks like Sever Thy Hand. I mean, Revanchist is pretty good, and some people will say Throw Into the Fires. You could switch those last 2 together, but yes, if you haven't already noticed, I'm talking about Trivium's The Sin and the Sentence. And I'm going to tell you, man, this album just surprises me. Still, I mean, I've always known about Trivium, but I've never had a chance to truly get into them until Silence in the Snow, which helped in the sense that I was enough of a Tremonti fan, because, and ironically even more, that right around the time they were promoting that, Tremonti was, I believe, promoting Carterize, so that was kind of going to be, might have been a slightly weird set list, given that both of those, to a degree, I guess, given those albums specific, giving his sort of material and their material. So, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed and almost every track is pretty dang good. Though Endless Night, I'm sure I could do without, but that's more of a to me, that's more nitpicking. Plus, it's the shortest song, so it's like over and done. It's not a big deal. Even though some people will say For the Heart from Your Hate, but this one and its follow-up Betrayer, perfect back-to-back, especially if you're just have this angered ball of hatred you want to therapeutically get out of you, especially if you're dealing with a sense of a breakup or something, which is what I had to go through. So because of that, I had to put it up on my number 3, because it is a solid album. Definitely brings the best aspects of what I've had to go through and listening throughout majority of the past records. More post-Shogun, but with a very Shogun-like element to their music. Finally, an album that truly sounds like themselves and is truly their best album of... Truly one of their best albums in their catalog, bar none. Some people will still probably say Shogun, but if you want something from Trivium that doesn't sound like completely or any hint of ripping off Metallica and sounding more like their own to a degree, in a way that works and kicks you in the ass, like any metalcore or even thrash metal-ish type record would want to do for you, this album will do it. Guaranteed. Number 2. It's not because of the news. It's not because of the news. And if you let that ruin your experience for this album, you don't deserve to be a fan of this band. At all. I'm not asking you to be a fan of Jesse Lacey. I can't ask you of that. I'm not a fan of his own actions as a person. But when it comes to him and the band as a whole, Brand New released their last best album, and it sickens me that incident had to fucking ruin one of the best albums I've ever done. This definitely makes up for those who were very disappointed in Daisy. Very disappointed in Daisy. Very. And wanted something that clearly was, as Jesse had stated, the closest thing to basically whatever other ideas that were scrapped up and left over from their two better albums, Deja and Tendu, and The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me. And that's more so Devil and God Raging Inside Me, though, but enough Deja Tendu to kind of weave in where needed. And this album, just from the opening tracks of Lit Me Up to Can't Get It Out, Waste, could never be having Same Logic Teeth, 137, Out of Mana, In the Water, Desert, Even Though No Control is iffy, whatever, 451 picks up and fixes all that crap, and plus the way they end No Control is actually pretty cool. And to batter up, I mean, hell, he already even pretty well stated that in and of itself when it came to him revealing that whole allegation bullcrap. It's definitely worth it. If you are still a fan, please give them a shot. Give them a shot. You will not be disappointed, and they have only 5 albums. It's not that hard. Just check out Brand New. Hell, I almost wanted to put them at number 1, man. But there was an album that mostly because I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's really not into metal. A non-metalhead, you could say, or whatever. Because of how aggressive and stuff it is. And this was an album that found a perfect balance of just the high energy octane that truly is that in the more positive light of that, while also bringing this more relaxing sort of thing. And it was really helpful, especially when going home from seeing a particular movie, The Foreigner, with him. And this album, from the moment you hear, I wish I could have learned this track beforehand and played it for you guys, because that riff, this is what if you liked what Paul Bearer and already adjusted to it between Mastodon and Paul Bearer, I probably wouldn't have been able to really grasp into this album, even though I can't say that lyrically. I can't say that for the fact that this is an album that actually, and even hit me harder in the sense that I was willing to recommend it towards my bandmates, even though they probably aren't giving a damn, and it still upsets me, and the fact that it even upsets me is enough to say that it's that worthy and that damn good of an album. CKN is right. It deserves to be number 1. Elders, Reflections of a Floating World is my number 1 album. I did wrestle with it with Brand New, even though I have more things I can say to prove my point for Brand New than I could, honestly, with Elder. But the fact that I could recommend a seemingly metal album to someone who doesn't care for metal and it actually be effective and him listen to it through and through, how is that not a good basis to go off of to recommending to anybody else? Sure, some people may find it a little on the lengthy side, a little too minimalistic. But it's almost kind of the charm of this album, especially if you liked what Mastodon put out in Crack the Sky. In fact, it's pretty well what Paul Bearer did on Heartless, but with those elements from Crack the Sky, right? That Mastodon put out, and it's done, and this is what Elder I feel like fulfills what Paul Bearer managed to do with Heartless, but hasn't fully gotten there with. And it's just still stuck in their doom metal thing. And what Mastodon has, to some people, still seemingly forgotten about with their roots, more specifically via Crack the Sky, and that is what Elder is bringing to the table. It is a psychedelic acid trip of just fun. Just, the moment you hear it, Sanctuary, you won't want to put this down. That song doesn't, if you question this song doesn't end, don't even bother fucking talking to me. I really enjoyed this album. I may not be able, I don't even have to, I don't feel like I should, do I need to say more? Just check out the album and see for yourself. Give it a chance. You take CKN's word for it, or you could take mine, because so far, as far as I'm concerned, we're the only ones that are bothering to talk about it. And I'm willing to say that's, if you're going to check it out, the best way you can find out for sure is Bandcamp. I don't know if there's a way you can get a physical copy any other way, maybe outside of Bandcamp. All I know is you could probably get it iTunes, maybe Google Play, possibly. Just, that's it, guys. Those are my albums. My best albums from 2017. If there were some other albums you liked, I mean, that didn't make this list, that, I did mention in my gift unveiling video, which is why you should probably be checking out that video if you want to know a little more. Hopefully, if you can read mine in cursive. But yes, definitely check those out. I might leave a link. I might try to leave a link in the description below for at least some of these albums. At least the ones I know I never got a chance to review, and hopefully find a way for you guys to be able to listen to them and see for yourself. Who knows? All I know is also right now I'm finally done dealing with this. I'm kind of tired, and I just need to be able to get some sleep for work, and hopefully I'll have this uploaded Wednesday. Well, today technically, from the time I'm looking at. So yeah, and many albums I'm anticipating, especially, the Tool thing. Looking forward to that. Just heard the news today, which was a Tuesday, actually, yesterday. I hate when I get my days mixed up, especially when it's, a little past midnight. But anyway, what did you guys think of, what was your top 15, 10, 20 in your list? Leave a comment below, let me know. Check out the link in my Facebook that I leave in the description below. And as always, guys, rock that like button with the rest of you must. And as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. And I will see you in the next video. Wherever that may be. Take care, y'all. And have a happy new year in 2018.